Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm Blake Oliver.
I'm David Leary.
And today we are talking about retention, turnover in the accounting profession, which is one of our biggest challenges, one of the biggest challenges for public accounting firms. And joining us today to talk about it is Geoff Brown of the Illinois CPA Society, the president and CEO of the Illinois CPA Society. Geoff, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Blake. Appreciate it.
We love the reports that the Illinois CPA Society turns out. And in December, you all released a report called Writing Retention, a look into the accounting profession's greatest management challenge. And that report showed a significant rise in turnover rates within the profession, at least within Illinois, among the respondents to your survey. I'm curious, and I'm sure our listeners are curious, what did you find are the key drivers in the turnover trend? And how is it impacting the profession in Illinois?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it should be any shock to anyone that the key reasons that people are leaving, salary, that's not new. Too many hours burnout, lack of work-life balance, issues with workplace culture, lack of advancement opportunities, the nature of the work. These aren't new issues for public accounting, but when you think about it, a lot of those issues are things that we have some management of, some opportunity to control. And so we just need to make the steps to really, address those issues. It's kind of interesting to me that, salaries have been on the rise, but we haven't done anything about the number of hours that people work. We're not addressing the work-life balance. And, think about the number of firms that win those best workplace awards. But culture still tends to be an issue. And when you think about it holistically, I think a lot of our turnover issues are really related to workplace culture.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked to see, well, I guess I'm not shocked. Salary was the number one reason people left. That's why they say they left. But too many hours / burnout is like right there, almost exactly the same, right? 49%, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then lack of work-life balance. So it's really those three things: salary, too many hours / burnout, and lack of work-life balance are the reason that accountants are leaving their employers. But they're not leaving accounting. And we've heard some sort of contradictory surveys, evidence on that. Some people have said that, like the Wall Street Journal reported a few years ago, that 17% of accountants left the profession entirely. But your study found that when people leave accounting firms, they're not leaving the firms. They're actually, where are they going? I guess is the
So just based on our research, talent that left the job in the last 2 years, they're leaving mainly for other opportunities in public accounting. So that was 62% of our respondents. Then the other ones were going to opportunities with public and private companies. That was about 23% of the respondents. And then 8% were going to private equity. And you flip that over on the employer side. I've been in this world for 14 months. So I've had an opportunity to have a lot of conversations with firm managing partners. And, when I asked the question of where's your talent going, they all said, they're going for corporate finance, jobs in business and industry. They think the grass is greener. They're leaving the profession altogether. And then private equity. They're like, there's no way we can compete with private equity. But, our survey data is telling a very different story that, they're looking for other opportunities or they're finding other opportunities in public accounting. So, when you think about the reasons that are driving turnover, and the fact that they're staying within public accounting, it's almost like, they're moving from the house that's on fire to a house that's on fire. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but there's got to be something about the places that they're going that they think they're going to have a different experience. So I really want to dive into that and really understand, what's different between firm A in public accounting and firm B, that the employee is thinking that they're going to have a different go at it.
Yeah, I would love to dive into that with you. You mentioned some of the less obvious factors, culture being one of those. What do you see, other than salary, right? What do you see as being different between these firms that people are leaving versus the firms that people are going to?
Yeah, and this is anecdotal because we didn't get an opportunity to dive into this, through our survey work and our focus groups. So, I'm just relying on some of the conversations that I've had with, newer professionals that are part of this target audience. And, I think it's partly due because of the small networks that exist with accounting professionals. A lot of people went to the same universities, they travel in the same professional circles, sometimes the same social circles. So you have an opportunity to really understand, what's different with my firm versus the firm where, my classmate works. And so I think those opportunities and getting recruited in really does help reinforce, that the opportunity is going to be different, that it is going to be better, and that it's not going to be one-to-one with what they came from.
So the survey was actually two surveys. So you surveyed about 450 firm leaders and then about 430 employees.
That's correct.
Did you get any answers that were like, they're just not on the same page? Like firm
Oh,
leaders are thinking A and the real reason people are leaving is B. Like, how'd you reconcile that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest disconnects were really around where employees were going. So that disconnect around, I'm leaving for another job in public accounting versus I'm leaving to go to corporate finance, business industry, the role of private equity. So that was probably the most glaring disconnect for me. The other piece was just the job hopping myth. I think that during the pandemic, a lot of employers, created this narrative that, our people are just chasing the next opportunity, chasing a dollar. And yes, that does play into it in some regards, but people weren't leaving at the rate that we thought that they were leaving or that employers thought they were leaving. So that's one. And then, I think there's a disconnect on the back end of just, I wish we had a lot of employers say to us, I wish I had had an opportunity to have a conversation with this person before they left. Whereas the employees said, no one ever asked me what I valued. No one ever asked me what I thought was beneficial. No one ever tried to keep me. And so I think, there's some real nuggets in that if you're an employer and there's a piece of talent that you're trying to retain, your best and brightest, just, take the time, ask the question, be intentional, be transparent, be approachable, make sure that you're, laying out for individuals, what their career paths could look like. And there's a real opportunity, I think, for employers to step back and say, you know what, I've been in this business for 30 years. My pathway was X. Is that going to be the pathway that the person starting today is going to want to travel? I think we're doing that in some regards, but we need to do it faster because people talk. We were talking about the role of social media. Every young professional that is having a positive experience isn't posting about it, but every young professional that's having a negative experience, they're talking about it. And I think that is a self-fulfilling prophecy of how we're not going to get the best and the brightest into the profession. And so we're going to keep having this discussion around retention.
Makes sense.
It's no big surprise that work-life balance, too many hours is in the top 3 responses why people leave their accounting job. Jeff, what do you think is how can firms deal with this, right? How can firms address the work-life balance issue? Did you identify any ways that we can solve that in the survey, or do you have any ideas from your experience?
So, one of the things that we've been doing with this, and we had our first conversation earlier this week with a group of firm leaders, and they want to have a follow-up conversation because they're all of the mindset that, hey, collectively, there are some things that we can do to kind of level the playing field. This is just here in Illinois. They're all recruiting from the same talent pool effectively, but they think that there are some things that they can do that would really address this. When we talk to young people, young professionals, they're aware of what they're getting into. It's no surprise that they're going to work long hours. It's no surprise that they're going to work hard, that work-life balance is going to be challenged throughout the year. I think what the issue is, they weren't expecting there to be multiple busy seasons. They weren't expecting that if they said they were going to have to work, 60 hours this week, that it actually turned out to be 70. And I think it's really being transparent, having clarity, and holding true to the commitments that you make.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be where we have issues with trust. That's what makes people open to having the conversation with the firm down the road because they're seeing this opportunity where you told me this, but now you're saying it's this. So if you're going to make a change in that regard, what else are you going to make a change around? And I think that drives back to that whole culture piece.
Yeah, I feel like when there used to be just one busy season, it was a much different deal. And that's, 3 months of your life, right, in busy season, that's totally doable. I've worked in other industries where we had a busy season and it was great.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
Made a bunch of money in 3 months and then I kind of relaxed the rest. But it's no longer, it doesn't work that way anymore. And so the busy season just keeps on going and going. And I guess I think you mentioned this in your survey too, or your report, is that as people leave, it puts more pressure on the people who remain. So it becomes this self-reinforcing problem.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that we saw in the survey, and we're hearing time and time again in conversations with younger professionals. We're hearing it with firm leaders. We're hearing it with that kind of middle management layer of, hey, I'm finally at a place where I'm managing people. I didn't think I would be doing the same work that I was doing when I started. So, no one's going to be immune to the impact of turnover, unless you're at the very top, I would think. But, people are feeling the burn, meaning that when someone leaves, who's going to do their work? Because it takes time to ramp up. If you're going to bring in a new hire, they're not going to be ready on day one. So somebody's going to have to absorb that work, and it's not going to be lateral all the time. It's sometimes going to go upstream, which means that you're going to have this cadre of individuals that thought they were getting out of doing that level of work and they're back into it. And so what does that do to them? And then you also have, what's the cost to firms of, getting a new hire up to speed, let alone just recruiting them? Things are starting to level off a little bit, but there was a real war for talent here in Illinois, and firms were getting creative. They were paying a premium. The recruiting industry was just raking it in. But I think that there's a lot that we need to do to really understand what the impact of this is going to be, because you have 3 people leave. That means there's 6 people that are going to have to absorb the work in addition to what they were already doing. And so it puts those individuals at risk. So it just keeps pushing things, further and further into the organization.
We've got a real supply problem in accounting. We spoke with Sue Coffey from AICPA, and she mentioned on our show and in an interview with Accounting Today that we are only producing about half the accounting graduates that we need to satisfy demand. It's something like 50,000 a year, and we need 100,000. So how do we address this supply issue, which is causing the overwork for the people who remain in the profession? Salaries are going up as a result of this shortage, but not that much. It seems like the work-life balance still seems to be a big issue, the overwork. So, given these huge numbers of this huge shortage, which must be thousands, right, every year in Illinois, like, what do we do? Like, we talk a lot about the 150-hour rule on this program, reducing education requirements. How can firms increase salaries? How can firms be more flexible? Like, does the Illinois Society, or do you personally, Jeff, have recommendations for how the profession
I think
do this?
I definitely have some thoughts on this, and I think the society has some thoughts as well. I think it starts with the experience. We are competing for talent against some very, in the short term, exciting industries that are paying a lot more right out of the gate. We know that young people aren't thinking, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road in terms of their careers. They're thinking 6 months, 1 year. And so when you're confronted with the opportunity to get a higher salary, quicker opportunities for advancement, but it's going to level off, you're probably going to jump at that because you're not thinking about things over the long term. And it's very difficult to have a conversation with a young person about, just stick it out for 20 years and then you'll see your payday. It's a very difficult prospect. I'm thinking back to 21-year-old Jeff, and I don't know that I would have been susceptible to that type of messaging. So really thinking about how do we change the career pathway model to really fit with what young people are experiencing in other industries today. I think that's one. The starting salary piece is definitely top of mind. I think young people, know what they're getting into when they pursue careers in public accounting. They just want the experience to match what they thought. And, I think all too often the experience isn't lining up with what we told them that they were going to do, which I think is very, very difficult for them to understand. And so it's kind of problematic in that regard. We were down at the University of Illinois back in the fall and did a student panel just to really understand what was happening with young people, what they were thinking. And, this was a group of high performers. I'm not going to lie. They were all pretty invested in pursuing careers in public accounting, but they had some thoughts about how things could be better. They know what they're getting into, and they just want to hear from more people that are closer in age to them versus, trotting out the best and brightest partner to tell them about their experience. So that was really interesting for me as well.
Yeah, that disconnect between social media and what students are hearing from their professors, I think, it's a big gap. And I wonder how much of that is because professors have not been in public accounting for 20 years in many cases, right?
Or never were in it, right?
Or we're in it for a year or two, right? Like, so, we've got to do something about like the view of accounting on Reddit. If you go onto Reddit, the accounting subreddit, and you read what is on there, it's like, it's bad, right? And I don't know. I mean, I wonder how many association leaders and professors and partners have ever even heard of Reddit or been on it. But that and TikTok is where Gen Z is getting their information about accounting.
Yep.
And if we did a survey of that and looked at it, it's not great, right? It's not a great image.
Well, and I always share with people that I'm again pretty new to the accounting world. I came over from financial advice, financial planning, and one of the things that I share with definitely educators is when we would go to college campuses and we were looking to help those programs recruit new students to the financial planning programs, we would always make a stop off in the accounting department, just because there was always going to be someone who was a little unsure, a little disgruntled, maybe saw something in social media. And they see an opportunity
Easy
to
pickings.
practice some of the same skills, but in a slightly different lane. It's not the same, but there's definitely some opportunities out there. We need to talk about the positive experiences that young professionals are having. We definitely need to change some of the work-life balance issues. We need to address the nature of the work and the relevancy piece. I think that that's going to be a through line for a number of years to come. And we need to think about, what's going to be most valuable to young people today. That same student panel that I talked about, they all had a high interest in working with nonprofit organizations. So that impact, that intrinsic value from helping people to the extent that it's possible, I think that needs to be a greater part of the experience for, some of those professionals in that 1 to 5 year experience, because we're losing too many. And that feeds right into that supply side issue that you talked about, Blake.
Yeah. You mentioned that young people aren't willing to sit around and wait 20 years to get to reap the rewards of, say, an accounting degree. And we got some insight from one of our guests on one of our podcasts, Joey Kinney from Summit CPA. He pointed out that when I think it was his mother is a CPA, when she was going down the accounting career path as a young accountant, it was about 7 years to partner in the 80s and early 90s. And now it's more than double that. It's 14, 15 or more years to go from starting as a staff accountant to becoming partner. And that's a really long time to wait. I certainly wasn't willing to do it. I left as a manager. And does the business model need to change, right? Like we've seen firms go into private equity deals, become corporations, eliminate the partnership model. I mean, what else can we do? I feel like there's a lot of half measures. We say, oh, we need to increase salaries, we need to do this, we need to improve culture. But this is a big problem. What can we meaningfully do to address this issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's encouraging that firms are experimenting, trying different options. I think the ownership model is certainly one piece of it. But we need to be responsive to the needs of the next generation and also be responsive to the needs of firms. And it's a really delicate balance, I think. But I think there's an opportunity there. When you think about the fact that young people aren't going to stick around for 20 years to become a partner. I was with a group of about 15 new professionals, all less than 3 years of experience. Only one of them was licensed. 4 were in process. The other 10 weren't sure. And we're in the CPA business. I'm not going to lie. We're in the CPA business. We're a state CPA society. So I'm always interested in how do we get people to become CPAs. And so when they talked about it, they're like, I have no interest in being a partner. I want to take care of my family. I want to have work-life balance. So until we can change the experience to meet those needs, we're going to have a difficult go at it. And I don't know if there's going to be a private equity ownership model or an ESOP that is going to fully address what we're experiencing on that side to really meet the needs of the next generation. I'm really concerned because, these are tomorrow's firm leaders, or they should be. On paper, they should be. But if we're not giving them the on-ramp that they need and making it enticing for them to be able to stay in the profession and see it through to the next generation, then what are we going to do? And so I think that's where we have an opportunity, as a state CPA society, as a thought leader, as a catalyst for change, to just drive a dialogue about, what are the options out there? Unfortunately, we don't own a CPA firm, so there's not much that we can do in that regard, but we can continue talking about what we see as the issues, what we're hearing from the different audiences, and try to engage the right players in creating change.
Jeff, do you think a lot of this turnover is, or how much would you attribute to bigger firms gobbling up smaller firms? Because I could see I'm happy maybe working at the smaller firm. I have good life balance. I'm not burnt out. It's not too many hours. I like the culture. Now they get bought by a bigger firm because there's not enough at the bottom of the funnel. Is
Mhm.
that one reason that these are the three reasons people are popping up or giving the reasons is just they got acquired?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that that's a high driver of it, David, but I definitely think it's something that we need to keep an eye on, because I think a lot of our talent issues, both early professionals and careerists, are driven from the top down versus bottom up. But we do know that we have a lot of young people that are having very positive experiences working in smaller firms, making conscious decisions to embed themselves in those organizations. So it's something we should keep an eye on.
So we did see some positive changes indicated in the survey. Employers who were surveyed said, to what changes has your organization made to improve employee retention within the last 2 years? 64% have increased compensation.
Mhm.
60% now offer a remote work option, and 49% offer flexible hours. Hopefully, we'll see more of those firms offer the flexibility, which is it's the second most important benefit that employees highlighted, right? So,
Yeah.
so we've got a lot of room for firms to offer more flexibility, and 75% of employees said they want that below
Yeah,
compensation.
that's very encouraging. My fear is that we spent the last 3.5 years, 4 years being incredibly responsive to our employees. How sustainable is that over the course of the long term? I'm already hearing from firm leaders that they're talking about how do we peel some of this back? How do we get people back into the office? And I'm like, these things are here to stay. They need to become a part of the model. They need to be, just standard benefits, standard, structural issues related to our work environments. And if we're not willing to do that, then we're just going to keep talking about these retention issues because there are plenty of other places that is their norm. It's not going back. And so if we're going to retain our best and brightest, then we need to do this.
I think that's the perfect way to leave it. Jeff Brown, President and CEO of the Illinois CPA Society, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thanks for the opportunity, Blake. I really appreciate it.
Now, if folks want to learn about the survey, if they want to read it themselves, we'll be sure to include a link in the show notes.
Very good.
And Jeff, let's say we've got some listeners in Illinois. They want to get connected with the society. What should they do? Where should they go?
They can definitely visit our website, www.icpas.org, or just give us a shout. We definitely have phones. Phones are back in business. So, feel free to pick up. But we're here. We're interested. And we always love hearing from CPAs and accounting professionals in Illinois and beyond.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.